I started off working in a huge institution as a mental retardation nurse, and we're now including people at university, and that's in one working lifetime. So when things look bleak, we're actually going quite, it's had a major impact. I thought that was a little flower coming out of the bag, because I thought one of the ways we change people's behaviour is by giving them bunches of flowers, but appearance is, I think it looks like a fuse. That doesn't work. Okay, one of the things we've got to think about is, why is this so hard? I'm sure all of you can reflect on that. This is a hard gig, isn't it, to actually get things actually happening. If you go back on the history, and it's not a pretty history, if you want to have a way to ruin your evening, is on my website. You can actually stream a history of disability, but take a couple of bottles of scotch with you when you actually do so. But it's a very dark history, and this has been the right course of action, is put them together and put them away. That's the historical pattern, and that isn't overcome easily. Even if we look at the services around the place, don't they all have this wonderful mission of, where you include people and all of this? And what do? They put them together and put them away. There's a massive incoherence in the whole service, and good inclusion is very rare. And the thing that, as a parent, you've got to realise is that there will be continually the best possible people saying your child will be better elsewhere. And they're not nasty people, they're people who really actually believe that. Okay, quickly go through the law. This is a bad idea, going through this pattern, but it's nice to know what the actual law is. There's two major bits of law, you can actually download them. Disability Discrimination Act, if your child like to go to school or university, if any other of your children can go to that school at that university, then your child can go to that school or university. This isn't a choice of a school. This is the law. This includes preschools, private schools, anything. And not only that, but they need to adapt the environment or the curriculum in order to include your child. So it means that the other thing is the educational standards. There's 6 standards, which says what the schools, universities or whatever are supposed to meet. They should be included in the same curriculum as all of the other kids. That's a bit of a challenge for teachers, but that's where we're at. Anyway, the basic issue here is, just because the law says it doesn't mean it'll happen, as many of you have found out. Just because the law doesn't mean it'll happen. Basically, if you take on a case, it's a bad idea. You lose your child's education, fundamentally, and you publicly pilloried as a parent, etc. But there's some parents who are very brave and did that actually have changed the world for those that followed. Okay, some big issues. If you're going to take them on, get your own child's education organised first, and then take them on. But the second one I think is a really major one. I've seen parents spend their whole life on advocacy, and their son and daughter goes nowhere. So I think a balance of the more time you spend on your child's development is probably going to be a longer term better outcome than spending all the time advocacy. Okay, rights, etc. So we stand on the shoulders of giants. But let's look at how we might actually start to change things as an individual. The first thing it's critical is to know where you're going. If you haven't got a clear vision of your son or daughter's future, then you'll be led down different paths. But if you've got a clear vision, by the time my child reaches the end of primary school, what would be the ideal situation for him to be in, then you can make decisions based on that. You can actually make big fish, little fish decisions. Is this a big issue that I need to take a stand on, or is this something I basically need to let run and go through to the keeper? Okay, it's worthwhile thinking about yourself, because you're put down a bit, aren't you, as parents? Now, is that true? Aren't you the most important person in that child's life as a parent? That's a massively important situation. Is that another thing that's true? Children learn more in the first 5 years of life than any other part of their life. Who's the teacher? That's pretty good, isn't it? Think of the things that a child learns in the first 5 years. It's massive. The other thing is really to remember is people like me coming in and out of your life. The teacher may only be there for a year, then they're out. Or the therapist may only be there for 5 minutes and they're out. Who's there at the end? It's you and the siblings and so forth. So it's worthwhile considering you are... Can you imagine anyone saying they know more about your child than you do? What an absurd idea. Of course you know more about it. You're an absolute expert on your child. Now, this is really important to take this idea, is you need to be the senior partner in decisions regarding your son or daughter's future. That doesn't mean you don't have partnerships, you don't listen, but you've got to be the senior partner. You've got to actually be able to take control. And you have to make your own decisions. People like me come into your life and come up with all sorts of good ideas. You'll wear the consequences. So don't just accept advice, think it through in terms of whether it fits your life, etc. And you can't do anything about the past. Some of you may be hearing things and saying, oh, if I'd only known this, well, you just got to let that go. Do you get that? Just a parent, you know, that sort of, well, I think you're a bit more important than that. Okay, if we're going to change this, we probably need to think about how humans work. Would you agree with that statement? We work better with positives than negative? What about that one? Can someone influence you? Do you know anyone you think couldn't be influenced? If we have this belief that anyone can be influenced, then the question is how we're going to do it. And so then it becomes a challenge rather than, I'm never going to get around that person. Some other things we know, if we plant someone with a whole range of extra work, they are not very enthusiastic. Does that relate to you? So we actually start to think of how we might actually get them involved and do a lot of the stuff for them. If your judgment's challenged and you're got held up as having some expertise, what do you reckon your reaction's going to be? If you come to a teacher and say, I don't like the way you're teaching, you should be teaching this way, what do you reckon the teacher's reaction's going to be? Go away. Yeah, or they'll shut down on you. Naturally, the people's first reaction, if you challenge them, there is going to be, they'll be defensive, and if you challenge them publicly, you can cement them into absolutely against you. So you've got to be very careful about what you're doing. Okay. Some of you may find that hard to believe, but actually people don't like to be seen as unkind and unfair. So if we can actually portray them as being helpful and kind, that's more likely to be effective than slamming them as being, unkind, etc. This is a bit of a scary one. We now have over 40 years of research showing that inclusive education is more effective than segregated education. We've been through the literature now for nearly 20 years. We cannot find one comparative research article comparing segregated schools and inclusive schools that comes out in favour of segregated schools. Has that changed the education system? We have 40 years of research and no alternative evidence, and it hasn't had a slightest bit of impact, has it? It's all come from actual families. So people aren't persuaded by facts, which is really sad, but it's a reality we've got to do, we've got to deal with. Okay, but can we inspire people to be different? I think we can. Okay, now this is one of the major strategies we use is public praise can frame a person into a positive position. We've got to catch them being good and then we publicise it. So what we quite often do is if a principal or does something good, we immediately write to the regional director and say, I want you to know that this principal did this fantastic thing And the regional director come down and, I got this lovely letter about you, and the principal all of a sudden is in the spotlight as a supporter. It's harder to backtrack out of that, isn't it? Principals and teachers love to be asked for advice. So here's another way we can get through that sort of thing. Now, what the clear message here is, we need to go for the positives. Positives change people. Same as all of us, you know, that we're much more likely to be influenced when it's positive. And the negative route is only when you're really, really stuck and everything else has failed. But, you know, even then I'd say go find another school. Okay, now there's also some gender issues here, because you've got male and females. Now this is really interesting. Would you agree with that? How do we change males? See, males are fixers. So if you go along to your principal and say, look, I'm really worried about this. My son or daughter isn't really happy in the classroom. The teacher's lovely, etc. Can you help me? You got any advice for me how I should handle that? Do you think that's going to be more powerful than going in there and saying, you're going to have to do something about Mrs. Jones, I've about had enough of her? He'll immediately come in support of Mrs. Jones, won't he? Whereas this way, he's a fixer. Some things that don't work with males, discussions. It's a waste of time talking about this stuff. Let's just get it fixed. Tears emotion don't work. They know about that. They've got to be the strong bureaucrat, etc. Threats and intimidation, no, they don't work either. And thank you cards. Men don't like cards. Sorry. Is that true, guys? Yep. Men don't like cards. But a letter, we can put it on file. What are you going to do with a card? You're not going to stick it on the desk, you think it'll look stupid. But a letter, oh boy, that's something else. I can do something with that. I can put that on file. Okay, what about females? How do we influence them? Well, fundamentally, the women like to talk, to discuss stuff. So it's a much better strategy rather than looking for a solution. Can we talk about this? It's going to be a more powerful strategy. Yeah, how can we work this out together? Yeah, maybe even using the mother trick. That sometimes works. If they're a mother, you know, you would understand this. Cards are good. Women like cards, yep. Okay, cards are good. Okay, not so effective. Demanding an immediate answer, you probably get a no. They may want time to think about it, talk about it, etc. Again, tears and emotion don't work, because if they fold under tears, then they're likely to be seen as a weak leader. So they'll actually tend not to be reacting to that. And again, threatening and intimidation doesn't generally tend to work. Does that make sense to you? These are strategies we might actually think about. Okay. The thing about bureaucracy is, I've worked in bureaucracy for 20 years, and they're out of control. You think that they're really, you know, understand, they know what they're doing. They don't. They haven't got an idea. It's a shambles in there. Now, they've got really good systems, but if you get yourself organised better, you can out-organise them. Because they really don't know what they're doing when it really comes to the crunch. So if you can work out strategies of actually influencing the system, you can be highly influential and you can actually beat them. The thing we've got to realise is that we all bow down to professionals, don't we? You come into the room of 14 therapists and they're all saying your child will be better off in that there, and you go, oh, I'm just a mum. And also, we have bad memories of the principal's office, don't we? One of the things I found was really terrific is being an associate professor of education, I scare principals. That's really good. Okay. So in terms of doing anything, look to your vision. Is this going to be good for my child's achieving the vision? Is this not going to be good? Is this a big issue that's going to be life-changing? Is this something I just have to swallow and cop? If you take on every issue, you're going to be seen as a whinger. And people are still learning how to do this stuff, so they're going to make lots of mistakes. prepare for transitions. You know, we have parents preparing 6 months beforehand. So they're actually thinking, they're starting to meet the new teacher, they're starting to guide the child around the school so the child actually knows, they get to know where the lockers are. A huge amount of thought goes into that transition, so you minimise the chances of it actually coming unstuck. These are being prepared. Have a notebook next to your phone. Every time you have a contact with the school, you just write down who, time, date, who you talk to, and a short little summary. That puts you in an amazingly powerful position because you've got contemporary data. Massively powerful because they don't have it. So when the argument comes up later and that wasn't our understanding and you go flick, 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 flick. Well, actually on the 23rd of May, you've got them. So that's quite an important thing. So keep records. Okay, meetings are very dangerous. This is where most of the damage is transacted, right? You're in deep trouble. Now, there's a couple of things you don't have to go. What are they going to do if you don't go? So if you see yourself as being set up, this is going to be a disaster, I don't think I'm going to be able, just don't go. Sorry, not feeling like it today. What are they going to do? Yeah.
That actually happened to me and they went to bed and had it without me.
Yeah, that's okay, but then they can't make you wear it. Yeah. Okay, always, if you don't remember anything else about this, always go to a meeting with a friend. Never go by yourself. This is even in positive schools. Because you can come unravelled and then someone says, well, we decided at that meeting. You say, I didn't decide that at the meeting. It's you against the 4 other people in the meeting. Who's going to win? You go along with your friend, particularly if that friend's taking notes. They can't do it to you. Okay. Why not take up to 4? I'm only half joking, actually. Okay, these are things that I've had happen, and some of you may have experienced these. You walk in a room, there's 14 professionals around the room. You walk in, there's glances going across the room, there's people watching. Clearly they've had a pre-meeting to decide what they're going to do for you. And then they introduce all these professionals, and you know that you're in deep trouble. Any of you been to one of those meetings? Yeah. Okay. So these are things we've got to be aware of. So if you're coming off those meetings, make sure you have a clear idea what it's about, get an agenda. Okay, can you send me the agenda? And if your stuff isn't on the agenda, make sure your stuff gets on the agenda. Always expect the best. Most people are nice. Most people want to be helpful, etc., but you've got to be prepared for the worst, always. Particularly when you've got these nice people all saying this is going to be best for your son or daughter. It's very easy to get swept up into this. And then you come home and sort of say, what have I done? You know, this is sort of a really tough. And you've got to know that as a parent, there's nothing more important than protecting your child. And particularly if you've got a child with a disability, you know that this is a continual thing. It's very easy to break down in a meeting. You know, this is... You've got to be aware of how I'm actually going to handle that, and maybe I just got to go. You just get up and leave. What are they going to do? Okay. Now, seating is quite important. You sit next to the most powerful person because they can't attack you. You try and attack the person sitting next to you. It's really hard. You're in their personal space and you really upset them. It throws them really badly. Even if it's a nice person, nice meeting, you just make sure that you're evening out the power dynamics. If you sit across the table from them, they've got you. It's a very powerful thing. We even have people have their friends sit next to the recorder. So then you can know what's actually being recorded. You're trying to tip the balance a bit because they've got the power in the meetings. Okay, the person coming along with it can be a neighbour, maybe someone you pick up on the way through. Doesn't matter who it is, just have someone there whose only role is to take notes. Now, if they wear a really pinstripe suit and look like a lawyer, that's a real bonus. Okay. Now, It's very rare to be in a meeting where there isn't someone who's listening to you. Watch for the body language. You'll get the body language of the people who are, looking over the top of their glasses, but you'll also see some other people who are just potentially allies. Look for them and see if you can work on them afterwards in relation to that situation. Okay, now immediately after a meeting, put it in writing. What you think that meeting said. I know this sounds like a hassle, but you put it in writing and say, thank you very much for the meeting today, that was fantastic, I really got a great feeling out of the room. My understanding is we decided that A, B, C, D, E. Now if they don't reply, that becomes the minutes of the meeting. You've then got that, this is what you decided. I checked this with you at the time, I sent you the email. If they come back, no, this isn't what it was supposed to be, okay, they've then got to react to it. And then you've got them actually saying, what did you really mean then? And you've got a point of dispute. Even if you come out with the minutes, even if you've signed off the minutes, do you have that sort of thing? You sign the minutes and you just want it to get out of the room? Even if you disagree with it and you realise, I've just signed this, you write back and say, look, I was just distraught at the time, I didn't agree with it, dung, 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 dung. Then they can't railroad you into a situation where you don't agree with it. Okay, but the main thing, and this is interesting, we've just done some research on this, where teachers who are working the best with inclusion, who really were producing the best results, what was number one they said was the most important thing? Partnerships with parents. Isn't that lovely? Number two, collaboration with colleagues. Then you get into the aides and people like me wandering around your classroom, etc. Yeah. So basically we're trying to build these partnerships between all the people in the situation. We're trying to, and we can do that by helping out. Maybe joining the canteen crew. There's a whole range of strategies we can do that. I'm going to just have to go through quickly stuff. But this is one of the major ways that we actually do is praise. Are you all susceptible to flattery? Do any of you feel overappreciated? Okay, so we're all susceptible, aren't we? Now, we quite often say, oh, yeah, terrific job you did there. That's nice, teachers like that. But you write, and that's a total, I've no teachers have got a letter the parent wrote 10 years before. They love that. Actual letter, much, much better than that. Even if it's handwritten, even more powerful. Yeah, so you catch them being good. In writing, specifying what they did good, otherwise they won't know. Okay, but you write to their boss. So if the teacher's been good, you write to the principal. What's the principal going to do? He's going to trot down, look at this lovely letter about you. Where's the letter going to go? Probably on the teacher's personal file. Is that powerful? You bet it is. Yeah, so, if the principal's good, you write to the regional director or whatever your equivalent is over here. If the department's doing good, you write to the minister, you write to the press. You're always trying to get them good, and it makes it harder for them to back out. See, once you've actually got them in there, it's much harder to back out. And you've got brownie points, so that when you do take them on later, you've actually got some runs on the board, and you avoid being classed as a whinger. I'm just very aware that this is a huge area, isn't it? So I've sort of run out of time, but does that give you some ideas of where you might go?